up happening is I secretly was laying in the back of the Jeep thinking, man, this Tom Sawyer song really kicks ass.
Hi, this is Steve Longo, drummer, producer, all-around musical person. And we're on the All Over the Place podcast, where the fun sanity never ends.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place. I am your host, Eric Porvoznik. As always, thanking everybody all out there around the world. We now have our, in addition to Switzerland this year, we have our second Japanese fan popping in. Thank you so much all around the world, listening, liking, sharing, subscribing all over the place. Very, very thankful for that. And also, as always, thankful for Mr. Jim Culver. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic. Bringing on, Steve from the Vapors that are turning Japanese slowly but surely. We're getting the crowds from there. I dig it.
Go figure. Yeah.
Also digging Marty McFly Zamora. I don't know why I never called that before, and I swear to God, I'll never do it again. Must be the MTV shirt you're wearing. I mean, 80 centric.
Got Bigfoot on and everything.
There you go, MTV Bigfoot. And with us today, we've got a singer, songwriter, actress, host, and she's got a new single out right now, and it is a tribute to Neil Peart and someone else special involved in that song as well. Cathy Rankin, welcome to All Over the Place. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey.
So I mentioned that the song Now You've Gone, which is a very, very cool tribute to Neil Peart, it also ties in with, I believe it's your nephew, correct?
Yeah.
Who I mean, both we lost both of those people in recent years, and you've made an amazing tribute to them. And tell us about that and how you brought those two very sad things together to make a very uplifting tribute.
I appreciate that. It was a very strange way how everything came together and happened. So I've always been a lifelong Rush fan, and they were a huge part of my growing up. And my brother was actually, my older brother was the one who had turned me on to Rush at a young age. And, fast forward, Neil had lost his daughter, Selena, in a tragic car accident, and she was only 19, and that happened in the 90s. And I don't know if you'll remember, but he took a hiatus and didn't think he was going to go back to music, and he eventually did come back. He wrote a book about it called Ghostwriter, and my brother had lost his son in an eerily similar circumstance. It was a single person car accident. Meaning there was no passengers. It was just him and another car. And he was only 18. And so I read through the book Ghostwriter because I wanted to read Neil's writing anyways, but I wanted to try to understand the process he went through and how he healed, because he eventually came back to music. And I gave that book to my brother to help him kind of get some insight into that journey and all the feelings and the emotions and the roller coaster you go through. I can't even imagine. I know what it was like for my family, my whole family, but for my brother, to lose your child is just unthinkable. So it's something that's very difficult to communicate about. And even if we're a close family, but you never know how to bring that topic up. You don't know if it's too painful. You don't know what to say. There's just never good enough words to say. And so that was an important piece of this, is this book that Neil had written. Well, 2015, that's Rush's last tour. Neil had come back. They were at the top of their game. He was excited, ready to retire. He had a new daughter. And I was at that last show that Rush put on. And it was amazing. It was an amazing show. And I remember at the end of that show, Neil came out from behind the drum kit, which he had never done in their career. And I had heard backstage that this was probably his last tour. And I knew when he stepped out from the drum kit and took a bow with Geddy and Alex that they were done. I knew that was the last tour, and I just cried my eyes out. And then 5 years later, 2020, the pandemic hits, and Neil Peart had developed brain cancer, a very rare kind, and it had been kept pretty private. I knew through some industry friends about it a little bit before it was ever public, but it was just shocking to get that announcement that he was gone. And that was the pivotal moment for me. I sat down and I wrote a poem about it and didn't think anybody would ever see it. And that's how the whole thing started.
Definitely a guy with heady words, and to lay down a tribute to him. Certainly a challenge, but did you find the words flowing rather easily?
So when I sat down and wrote the poem, I initially, it wasn't even about my nephew. I really did write it about what I was feeling about losing Neil, because I knew when I got the news, I mean, I was getting texts from people and I was texting people, and it just hit me so much harder than I thought, even though he's somebody I never met. I knew millions of people were feeling the same way that I did. Like there was just this huge instant void, because Neil had been such a part of our lives and his writing was. So to answer your question, when I got the idea, it literally just popped into my head, and I truly sat down and within probably about 10 minutes wrote the poem. So it started out I've written poetry my whole life. So it just started out as a poem. And I set it aside and I didn't think any more about it. But every once in a while I would go back and I would tweak the words, and I would think of something new, that little twist I wanted to put in one of the lines, which I often do. And I would just go back and kind of edit the poem. And during that time, because like I said, it was during the pandemic, I had started wanting to turn some of my poems into songs. I knew that was something I always wanted to do. And so I kind of had that in mind, that this needs to sort of have a verse chorus format. But I had not written my own original songs yet, just poems. And so just a couple years after that, it sat. And Ken Mary, who's played with Alice Cooper, he's playing with Great White. Of course, they just lost Jack Russell. Flotsam and Jetsam, Fifth Angel. I mean, he's been on so many projects. Killer drummer, killer producer. He called out of the blue John Bronson, my boyfriend, who's the guitarist, and he said, "Hey, John, I'm releasing my Fifth Angel album, and I would like Cathy to interview me. Could you contact her for me? Because John and him go back 30 years. So that's how Ken Mary got involved. He reached out and I contacted him and we did an interview. And it turns out he was a huge Neil fan as well, and actually had a project, which you can see on his YouTube channel, where he was replicating some of Rush's songs, exact note for note, doing the drums and showing how it was done back in their day, not with new technology. So it's kind of cool. And we got to talking about that. We just clicked. And to thank me for the interview, he's just such a gracious guy. He emailed me and he said, "Hey, I really want to thank you because you really helped out with some things. Is there anything I could do for you?" And I said, "Well, I'd like you to look at some of my poems and just tell me, I'd like to turn these into songs, but I don't know if it's worthwhile. Maybe you think they suck. And I just want that opinion. I want an honest opinion." And he came back and he said, "I really like your writing. I think it's very strong. And if you would want me to produce one of these songs, which one would it be?" Well, of course, I had the Neil song. And I said, "Well, you're a Neil fan. I'm a Neil fan. This is the story of this song. Why don't we do that one together?" And he agreed, and that got the ball rolling. Once Ken got involved, it was a whole different ball game.
I love that. And of course, then you're also getting involved with that, David Ellefson,
Yes.
of Megadeth fame and beyond. So how did David enter the equation on that?
So David is from Arizona. So is Ken. So are John and I. And David actually has been a customer of John. John owns a guitar shop. And so he knew John from way back when. He's been to some of our band gigs. So we both knew David. And then Ken, of course, has worked with David many, many years, and they've done a lot of stuff together. So it was weird. We all kind of knew each other. I co-host the Metal Hall of Fame and had already worked with David there. And so I said, Ken, why don't we get David to do bass? And it was funny. Ken was actually like, I mean, David's great. He's like, but I don't know if he can do Rush. That's so different than his style. And I said, yeah, but gosh, to have David on the song would be really, really cool. And we all know each other. So he reached out to David. David loved the idea. He loved the song and what we had laid down already. And so he just jumped right on board, which was the coolest thing. And I think that's what made the song work is we all knew each other. And so there was a really great chemistry. We had a lot of fun together. And we were actually all very shocked at how David was just able to flow right into this totally different style. You know, he doesn't normally play with his fingers. He usually, you know, would use a pick. And in Megadeth, and he played with his fingers, and God, he just did some really cool bass stuff. So that was fun for all of us to see him do that. So that's how he got involved.
Now, obviously, Rush has such a unique sound and vibe that you know it's you know I can imagine that adapting a song that, or excuse me, making a song that's a tribute to them would be a really interesting experience. You know, how did you go about like creating a song that was so similar to what they do? Was there kind of discussions with the band where you said, well, we can do this, but maybe not this, or something like that?
Great question. Ken and I talked a lot about what we wanted to do with the song before we even did anything. And one of the ideas Ken had come up with, you know, because he laid down the drums first, and we knew this being a tribute to Neil. And if you read the lyrics and you've watched the video, there's some very specific lyrics that reference little Rush things, and you know, the book Ghostwriter, and there's a lyric that harkens back to a lyric that Neil wrote in Limelight. And so we knew from the beginning we wanted to make this a tribute song to Rush musically as well as lyrically. And but that's a tricky thing because you have to worry about copyright, which did end up being a funny issue in this whole process. So we thought, okay, we're going to do this beautiful ballad. Ken came up with the melody and the basic orchestration, and I fell in love with it immediately because it sounded like an orchestra. It sounded like a symphony to me, and it had all these really cool elements. And then we thought, well, how are we going to make this like a Rush vibe? Because this is going to be for Rush fans. So Ken came up with the idea of this instrumental ending, and I loved the idea, and he laid down the drums, and I thought, holy cow, this is really cool, but this really sounds like Rush. Can we get away with it? And so I went down the rabbit hole, and so did Ken, of looking at how much we could do that sounded like Rush but wasn't Rush. And originally we actually did have snippets of the actual songs. Xanadu, there was a snippet that was really similar to Xanadu, and there was a snippet obviously to Tom Sawyer. And they were just such quick riffs, and you can't copyright drums, so we thought we could do it. Well, I actually reached out to Anthem Publishing, who handles Rush's catalog, and they were like, nope, we don't allow anybody to do anything similar to Rush. So to be safe, we had already recorded the whole song. We had to go back and change that whole instrumental ending. And what we did, and John Bronson gets credit for this, he really took the guitar and he created this completely different part. It's musically totally different, but you still feel like you're hearing, you can tell it's Tom Sawyer, but it's not. So we came up with this really cool alternative that actually ended up sounding like Rush, but it's not, and it's not anything that would violate a copyright. And I actually ended up liking it better, and we were really happy with it. But I think that made the song, because that was the Easter eggs that Rush fans were looking for. they wanted to hear something like Rush.
Are we talking about the breakdown and the instrumental at 4:45?
Yep, that whole ending.
Love that.
Yeah, which, some people think I'm nuts for coming out with such a long song on my first song, but with the internet, it's kind of a different world. You could just sort of do what you want. And if people don't listen, they don't listen. But if they're interested, they'll go on YouTube and they'll watch the whole thing. So
you really can't
they can make their own edited version if they want.
Exactly.
You really can't make a Rush tribute song that's 2 minutes long anyway. That's kind of like
exactly. Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I'm not going to do that on every song. Obviously, this was a unicorn, but we could never duplicate how all this happened. It was just so organic, and the process of writing the song is where I discovered that I wasn't just talking about Neil. I was talking about my nephew, because I had never really delved into those emotions myself, and I just started realizing this is really expressing everything I was feeling about that, about loss in general, watching what my brother went through. And it just all came together so naturally. And so it was important that I included that, and that I made it something to relate to everybody who's gone through, because we all get touched by loss at some point in our life. And I didn't want it to be depressing. I wanted it to be hopeful at the end. I wanted it to be, okay, you go through this, but Neil had a life after, my brother has a life after, and the loved ones leave you with, beautiful things and memories and things that are very much alive still, that you can carry on, and that's their legacy. And so that's how I wanted to approach it.
Yeah, gone but never forgotten.
Right.
And actually, Jim and all three of you much bigger Rush fans than I am. So this is a slight jab at the prog angle of Rush I never really got into. But you can make 8 songs 2 minutes long each, and just have them all in different phases or stages, as they might say.
Yeah.
For the Stages live album. Yes, thank you. See, I became a fan, and I love that in the background there. I see you've got the license plate Rush 85, Cathy, and that is my touchstone.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't see that.
But I'm an umpire. I see and hear everything. Don't anyone say otherwise.
Not according to the parents.
Yeah, well, or the coaches, whatever.
I'm one of those total Rush nerds,
But Rush 85 was my touchstone with the band. I Power Windows. I will go upside down, backwards, forwards. That when I know a lot of the. Well, I will ask you this. I'll put this to all the Rush fans, but you first, Cathy, as you are our guest. What's your feeling on the incorporation of how, of course, it was a product of the time, but all the keyboards coming more to the fore in the 80s? What's your take on that?
I'm so open to. I really try to keep an open mind with music, even though I love what I love. And like now I don't listen to a lot of modern music. I should more. But I really like to stick with what I love and what I grew up on. But with that being said, I'm always open to hearing new things. Like Alex Lifeson has a new project, Envy of None. And at first I thought, I'm not going to like this. And I watched a video for a new song they just released, and I really like it. And it's different. So when Rush came along with all the synthesizers and the keyboards, I happen to love synthesizers and keyboards. I was a big Duran Duran fan. And so I always loved that. I loved that kind of music. And I didn't know if it fit necessarily in Rush's stuff as well. I loved all their older stuff, but I give them props for what made them so genius is they were willing to always think outside of the box and to always try different things. And, they experimented, and good for them. And it was just another aspect of their creativity that they were exploring. So I don't fault them for it. It wasn't my favorite era, but as a fan now, I've gone back and listened to some of those albums, and surprisingly, I'm like, I should have given it more of a chance, because there's still some great material in that era. So,
Well, Well, you're talking to a fellow Durrani as well. So yeah, I switched gears very quickly while off camera. So nothing wrong with a little keyboard if done properly. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was so much more forgiving of Rush kind of going uber prog or whatever, adding keyboards and that became kind of the mainstay for a bit there. And I could not forgive Van Halen. I was just, oh no, you can't do it. So, but I don't even remember even really noticing. It's just that it was different, but I didn't really remember thinking like, what the hell, keyboards? It just works.
Well, I think Rush could get away with it a little more than like Van Halen, because Van Halen, you had Eddie, who was just, he was Eddie. And whereas Rush, there was only 3 guys, and they, Geddy always played some sort of keyboard, even in the older days, they experimented a lot with technology before technology became what it was. So they were always kind of experimenting with different sounds and things like that. And so I think for those guys to delve into that wasn't terribly shocking, because it's not like Alex was the kind of guitarist that Eddie was. And I don't mean that as a slam, because he's highly underrated, but he wasn't like the centerpiece. They all did what was best for the song overall, rather than Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen. Obviously David Lee Roth was awesome, and so was Sammy Hagar, but you have one of the greatest guitarists of all time. So he was kind of your centerpiece.
Yeah, and Eddie was a fantastic keyboard player. It's just it just didn't seem right taking. And you're right about Alex. He's in my top 5. I absolutely love his style.
So underrated.
Okay, that's it. Unofficially, we're going to do this speed round, lightning round, an unofficial 3-fer. Top 3 Rush songs. Since I'm the one bringing it up, I'll go first while the rest of you can think of your just speed. Bam, bam, bam them out. I'm going to go with Mystic Rhythms, Free Will, and New World Man.
Wow,
Cathy,
interesting
to you.
choices. Me?
Yeah, your top 3.
Okay.
Top of your head.
This is the worst question for a Rush fan because it changes day to day, but
Absolutely.
I'm going to cheat. Number 1 is the entire Permanent Waves album. It's my favorite. Number 2 is the entire 2112 album.
You prog people, this is why I don't like you.
I know. I'm so cheating. And then number 3, I would say one of my favorites, well, probably The Garden. It was the last song of the very last album that Neil ever wrote, and it's about looking back at your life and what have you left. So it's very appropriate. It's kind of almost prophetic that he wrote that as the very last song he ever did. And it's just a beautiful song. If you go listen to it, it probably was some of their best work. So The Garden would be up there.
Clockwork Angels, much love. Very underappreciated final album.
Very
Marty,
great.
Your top 3 Rush. Lightning round.
It's very hard, but I'll go Spirit, number 1, Fly By Night or Working Man, one of those 2. And then pick anyone off 2112.
Yeah.
All right, Jim, round us out.
Number 1, Free Will. Number 2, Limelight. Number 3, Tom Sawyer or YYZ, depending on what side of the bed I got up on the
Zed.
Zed.
Oh, yes,
Excuse me.
YYZ for our Canadian listeners. Yes.
Yes. So you like the hits, Jim. You like their hits.
They're the ones that got me into Rush. So they're nostalgic favorites of mine.
Yeah. Well, they're great songs.
They're hits for a reason.
Yep.
And Cathy, you mentioned, of course, your older brother got you into Rush, and I'm the oldest, so I didn't. God bless my mom and dad for having good taste in music passed down to me. But did you have any younger siblings that you would pass down, whether it's Rush or anything?
No, I was the baby of the family. And my brother and I actually despised each other growing up. We loved each other, but we fought a lot. And he turned me on to Rush. He wanted to do it to bother me. My mom would make him drive me to school, and he hated that. And he would take the top off of his Jeep, so blow my hair all around, and he would blast Rush. And he did that because I was pretty young at the time, and it scared me because the whole cover of the Moving Pictures album kind of scared me. And he did that on purpose, to thinking that it was going to upset me. And what ended up happening is I secretly was laying in the back of the Jeep thinking, wow, this Tom Sawyer song really kicks ass. And so I ended up becoming this huge fan. And actually, he moved on and didn't care that much about Rush. And I was the one who became the real Rush nerd. So that's how that happened.
So you mentioned earlier, you gave him the book in order to help him with his healing process, or the way it had with Neil. How did he take to the book? Especially knowing that he kind of Rush, he put in his rear view a little bit.
It's a really great question. It's interesting. So Neil was, if you know Rush's music, Neil was very much against any kind of religion. And my brother has a very strong faith. And so he found it very interesting. He really appreciated it. He loved it because Neil did write a lot about how he healed, and there was some big similarities with my brother. Neil took to his motorcycle because basically he said if he sat in his house, he would have ended up killing himself. And so he got on his bike and he rode, and he wrote about his journey, and that was how he healed. And he said it was the motion of the wheels and having to pay attention to the road and being on his bike that distracted him and made him start to feel emotions again and start to engage again. And my brother, interestingly enough, took up off-road bike racing or just mountain biking, and it was the same kind of thing. He took that up, and that, I think, was also something that helped him focus and heal. So my brother really took to that and understood it, and I think it helped him realize and delve into his own emotions. But he did say something interesting to me. He said, it was sad to him that Neil didn't have any kind of further belief, because my brother, his faith is what got him through, in the hope that he would see his son again. So I know some Rush fans won't like that, but it's an honest answer. We all have different beliefs about what happens after you die, and some people believe that nothing happens after you die, and that's okay if that's what you believe. But my brother differed on that.
Well, I think that's one thing about Rush fans. They are very open-minded.
Exactly.
I think so. Yeah. Unlike some who would just get angry over. So yeah, I think they follow along, whatever gets you there.
Well, I think, it's funny. I've met really awesome people in my work with Bubba Bash, which is an event that honors Neil Peart, and just in all the Rush stuff I've done and the people I've met, you meet people from all walks of life, all different belief systems, but I think that's what we all love about Neil is he wasn't offensive. He was a deep thinker, and he made all of us think about what we believe and why, and we don't always have to agree. And I think we live in a world where we need to go back to, we don't have to agree. You don't have to see the world the same way I see the world. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person. We're all colored by different experiences, different ways of growing up. Many different factors play into our lives that shape who we are. So of course, we're all going to have our own perspective. So I just think we live in a world where we need to remember that it's okay to be different.
So I'm just going to go ahead and update your wiki page here to also add philosopher. That was fantastic.
Thanks, Marty. That's nice.
And the wind therapy, I agree 100%. When I'm having a bad day, when things are not going well, or there's a problem that I have to deal with, I get on the bike and ride, and you can't think of anything else.
Right.
So you're just focused in on what you're doing, and then when you stop the bike, it all comes back in a different way somehow. That's interesting. It works for sure.
Yeah. That's exactly what he talked about in his book. That's interesting that you say that.
And Cathy, of course, you've had the song out now for a couple months, came out at the end of last year. And what's the reaction been like so far as you've been out playing it live, and also just when people checking it out on the socials?
We actually haven't played it live.
Oh, you have not? Okay, so
Oh.
coming up. Okay.
So Ken is obviously an extremely busy guy. So's David. David's off touring, and you know, that's why you're stuck with just me today, because they're both just knee deep in big projects, and my bands stay really busy, and they're just cover bands. But we haven't played it live. It's going to take a lot of planning to do this song live, because it is a pretty complex song. And it would require probably a special event to get us together to do it, or to maybe I don't know that we could get Dave just because of his schedule, but it is something we're going to do at some point. We just don't know what it's going to look like yet. But the reaction has been amazing. And this being my first song as an original artist, we just wanted to get it out there and just establish that, you know, this is the beginning of who I am as an artist. And I couldn't be happier with how people have responded. People really got the message. People really felt the emotion and connected it. And that's all I wanted. And that, to me as an artist, is so inspiring and so encouraging. So we're already working on the next song. I think we're going to release things digitally for now. And then when I get enough material that I could have, you know, more than one song to play, then I think we'll look at doing something live. But right now we just want to get the rest of, I have a lot of stuff written. So we want to get some stuff done and get a little bit of a library going on my Spotify, so that we have some more music to offer people if we do something live. So, but yeah, people have been wonderful, and it did more than I ever expected. You know, we got a lot of press coverage, and just, I can't tell you how wonderful it's been. The views on the YouTube video, and, you know, and I'm not a social media. I do it because I have to, but I didn't grow up on it. So it's not like second nature to me. And boy, it's a whole other ballgame that you have to worry about, the social media stuff. So half the time I don't know what I'm even doing. I just throw something out there
and hope it sticks. So there will be no like special acoustic performances with just you and John. You want to be.
Yeah, John and I actually will do an acoustic thing, and we've been talking about that recently. And it's a matter of time. You know, we're recording this. We're already working on the second song, and so we want to get that done. And then we're playing. You know, we play 3 nights a week usually. So we're just trying to find a time where we can sit down and really, because it's going to take some time to arrange that acoustically and come up with it. But we definitely are going to do that. And that should probably be pretty soon. I think we'll come up with that pretty soon.
No, I mean, I totally get it. And I think of also Wolfgang Van Halen writing Distance to get him through losing his father. And what a centerpiece that is live. I just said,
and isn't he just so talented?
Yeah, you don't want to get me going on that. He's the future of rock and roll. And every time I hear Distance, something gets me right when he gets that solo, and like he's ripping it like his dad, like son of a wow. Yeah.
And the fact that he plays all the instruments, and you know, he can play and record all the stuff himself. He's amazing.
Well, it's in the genes. So yeah. You kind of expect Eddie and
Mallory was very talented, yes.
Yeah.
But I never expected him to have such a great voice. That was what shocked me. I've seen him live twice now, and he is a phenomenal singer. Like, I love his vocals. So pretty cool.
It seems like we're at a lot of these same shows together. I was also at that final show at the Forum on R40.
Oh, nice.
And we're probably at the same marquee show where they were opening up for Rival Sons.
Yes.
And then did you catch the show down in Tucson, or did you catch them opening for Guns N' Roses?
Opening for Guns N' Roses.
Oh, and also an opening for Metallica.
Yes.
I think it's 4 or 5 times I've seen Wolfie now.
Yeah, I might have seen him 3 times then, because I forgot about that.
Yeah, kids everywhere. I love it. So, you have done some work with one of the Rush tribute or cover bands, Fly By Night. Tell us about that experience, getting up there and singing a Rush song.
Oh, that that was so funny because that is like a cell phone video that I just threw on my YouTube. And I don't know how it got picked up in the press, but somehow it got picked up in the press. That was a 30th anniversary show. There's a local band, and Dave Cornwall is the Geddy Lee of the tribute band, and they're called Free Will, the Rush Experience. They've been around forever, and Dave is just a great, great musician. And we'd always wanted to work together, and he just invited me to come host their 30th anniversary show just this past November. And so I did that, and he's like, hey, do you want to get up and sing Fly By Night? I'm like, sure. And then I got there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm singing this song and I've never sung it live. I've never performed with them. We never rehearsed it or anything. And we just like ran through it at sound check. So it was scary, but it was a blast. And I think, we pulled it off for having no practice or anything. But I just was shocked that people even saw it, because I didn't think it was actually going to see the cell phone video.
The internet, it is everywhere. It will get you. It will get you.
Well, I'm a big Rush fan, and that was fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh, thank you.
That was really good.
Let me tell you, I researched it and found out that they had not played that song since 1978. And I always loved that song, so I was wondering, why don't they do it? And Geddy said in an interview, the song scared him. He said those vocals, he didn't want to do it live. And when I sang it, I was like, oh, I kind of see why. It's not easy.
Well, that leads to another question I wanted to ask of all three of the major Rush heads with me. Would you rather the legacy remain where it is and just have Alex and Geddy let the rest, or would you like to see them go out there? And I don't want to say you can't replace Neil Peart. Get someone on the drum kit, or so like that. That's one of those things where you need multiple drummers to pull that off. I think a Portnoy could pull it off of any of them, but or let the tribute acts or the cover bands do it. So I again question all the Rush fans here, but Cathy, I want to start with you on that, since you've had the opportunity to sing with one of them.
Yeah, well, and I host the Bubba Bash with Why Not, who's just a phenomenal national tribute act to Rush. They're just fantastic musicians. I personally I feel they went out on a high note, and I feel that last show was so powerful. I don't want to see them. I would like their legacy to remain as is. I think it's time those guys get to enjoy their retirement, their life. And I see that Alex is excited about his new project. And those guys have been doing Rush for so long. I think they want to just do other things, and I think they should. Would I be opposed to seeing Geddy and Alex do something together just as a one-off or like a special event? I would love that. I don't think they should try to ever do Rush again. And I don't think they think they're going to either, because they've been asked that so many times. And I think if anyone would want to, it'd be Geddy. But if I'm being honest, he could not sing he couldn't sing a lot of the material anymore the way he used to. And I don't think those guys are the kind of band that would go out and do it for the money, or do it if they couldn't do justice to the music. So I think it's time to just let their legacy, they went out on such a high note, so I'd prefer they just leave it at that, but that's just me. What do Marty and Jim think?
Jim, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to finish on Marty on this one. So, little wind therapy there for you, Marty, as you wait for your turn. So, Jim, you on this one.
Well, as Dr. Krieger said on Archer, Neil Peart stands alone. I really think that the band would never be the same without him. So yeah, I agree with Cathy. I think they need to leave things where they are. Obviously, their work speaks for itself at this point. And they could never be the same band without Neil. I think at this point things are good where they are.
All right, Marty.
You guys are wrong. They're being selfish. They need to get some songwriters to get some lyrics together, put out a new album. No, I totally agree. 100%.
You were scaring me there, Marty.
All done. They're good. I would like to see them every year, 3 years, whatever, for special events.
Yeah.
Taylor somebody in there and do a show with 2-3 songs, like a benefit or whatever, once in a while, just so we get a little fresh, a little fresh Rush, even though it's not Rush. I think they should do that, but no more new music, no more touring as Rush, no more of that. That's over.
That's over. They did show up with Primus. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, imagine being in the audience and they surprise you with those guys coming out. That would be awesome. But anything more than that, they don't need to do.
Yeah, every now and then, just to keep us thirsty.
Yeah.
A nice reminder. Yeah, I agree. And like you said, Cathy, how many bands get to go out on such a perfectly high note? And you mentioned, Neil coming out from behind the drum, something he never did. That's it. I mean, and to
that's
have
statement.
That as your final statement, definitely. So, and Jim, I know you had a non-Rush question for Cathy, so I'm gonna pass the torch over to you for that one.
Yeah. So earlier you brought up your YouTube channel, and I was on there earlier and noticed that you did a Monday Night Football sketch with the great Leslie Nielsen, and even got to do the Shirley joke with him, which as a movie nerd maybe absolutely geek out to see that. So what was it like working with Leslie Nielsen?
Oh, I love it.
Another Canadian. What is it with you and Canadians? I'm telling you.
I love the Canadians. I literally love the Canadians. I thank you for noticing that, because that I'm a geek too. Leslie Nielsen was one of my favorite people before I even got that commercial. And that was a commercial that I landed as a fluke. It was one of my first big auditions. They were looking for a brunette who was over 5'6" tall, which I don't fit any of that. And I went in, and I guess in the audition, luckily I had a casting director that took a chance and said, I'm going to send you anyways because you're good at comedy. And I guess I was the only girl who auditioned that understood the joke. So I improv some things and I made it funny, and I got the call. That was cast like the day before they were going to shoot it. It was a crazy thing. And so I went and I showed up on set, and they said, you're the only actor that has a scene with Mr. Nielsen. So we'll introduce you to him, but don't talk to him. Don't ask for his autograph. We'll just make an introduction just so he knows who he's doing his lines with. Well, I'm like, come on, it's like Leslie Nielsen. I love the guy. So they bring him in, and everybody was just so, oh my gosh, it's Leslie Nielsen, stay away from him. And he's sitting down, and they bring me up to him, and they're like, Mr. Nielsen, we want to introduce you to Cathy. She's going to be the other actor in your scene. And I go, Leslie, I'm a huge fan of yours. And I bet you've never heard this, but I have the original 6 episodes of Police Squad on DVD. And it was my favorite show. And he lit up, and he thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And he's like, well, come on to my dressing room. Let's chat. I'll sign stuff for you. The producers were just like stunned. And for the rest of the day, he invited me to hang out and watch him film all his stuff. And we chit-chatted, and he took pictures with me. He was awesome. He was everything you would hope he would be. Very serious guy on set. Like, he was serious, and he knew what he wanted to do. But when that camera turned on, he was absolutely brilliant and absolutely hysterical. So it was a great experience.
Awesome. The fact that you had the show is amazing, because I love that show. It was brilliant and so ahead of its time.
Oh, and it set up the Naked Gun movies. It set up that character.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a perfect setup. So the fact that they were hiring brunettes, but you were the one who got the joke. See, that's called fighting stereotypes right there.
Yes. And that's called, don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Like, I just don't follow those rules. And thankfully I had people in my corner who also were like, nope, we know you could do this. And that really broke my career. That broke it out. I went full steam after that. And that was a really key moment and it got nominated. It got nominated for a Sports Emmy Award in the same category as the Olympics. My very first job. It was crazy.
That's cool.
There are fewer things in life more satisfying than proving people wrong.
Yes.
And I've got to go now because I've got to get my down to the all-night Wicker store. Yeah, I own that same 6 episode set as well.
Do you really?
It's packed away right now. Otherwise, I would have put a single screen. I would have gone and gotten it off the shelf and put it behind me as well. But
awesome.
no, it's that was a great show, and yeah, it's just sad that we didn't get to see the outtake of John Belushi, who was supposed to have one of the fake deaths on the show.
Oh yeah, I've never.
There's some trivia with Eric, Jim. That I know you probably knew that one though, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I've literally never met anybody else who had those episodes. That's crazy that you guys did.
Yep.
Should we end the show with a freeze frame?
I love Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, so freeze frame it at the end.
Yeah, you guys go ahead and nerd out. I'm going to go do some stuff.
Oh, Marty, don't leave.
Marty, just go down to the laundromat where all the murders are taking place.
I remember the show. I definitely do. I'm not a facts and figures, got everything memorized type of guy. I'm more of the dancing monkey.
Well, you're our dancing monkey, Marty. So it's a beautiful thing. And Cathy Rankin, so much again for joining us on All Over the Place. And you've got some shows coming up later this month. Folks, be sure you check out Cathy over at www.cathyrankin, that's RANKIN.com. Oh, there we go. Merch is everything there.
Deco Entertainment. I have to just give a shout out. Deco Entertainment took a chance on me and signed me, and they have been super in my corner and supportive. So they want me to push. They wanted to have a shirt, and I won't wear my own shirt. I draw the line. But if you want a shirt and a sign, there's a really cool. We did a really cool signed flat that is a take. I always wanted to do a take on the Permanent Waves girl, who was also the same model that was on the Exit Stage Left album. And so we did a really cool photograph sort of in that vein. And people ask me a lot, do you have any signed photos I can get? And that's the only one I really have right now. So, because I stopped doing calendars years ago. But so yeah, you can get that in the shirt if you want on my website, cathyrankin.com.
Well, that album came out at a pivotal time, or a little bit before a pivotal time for me as a Catholic boy who kind of enjoyed the underwear shot on that one. So I'll just leave it at that. So yeah. So yeah, yes. I was at mass earlier. There's something else to go confess now. Wonderful. So yeah. Anyway. But again, Cathy Rankin, thanks so much for joining us, folks. Check out the single "Now You've Gone," a tribute to Neil and her nephew at all the audio platforms, and definitely check her out: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Did I miss anything, Cathy?
X. I'm even on X.
Right on X. That's right. If you're watching, you've seen all the tags there on the ticker. So check it out. Cathy Rankin. See you soon up the 101 at one of the shows. Take care, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Thank you for having me, and I'll share the link too to your podcast. It's awesome.
We always appreciate it. Thank you, and we appreciate everyone liking, sharing, subscribing. And we'll be back real soon on All Over the Place. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.